my belief is if we bring somebody on and people face fear in the, head on, we're going to do more revenue. It's a very simple person with a bigger, better, stronger team. The year-over-year increase of income potential continues going vertical. And only with that and hard work does it work.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
We look at the structure behind ownership for one particular company. Our special guest today is the founder of Construction Simplified. They were number 1392 on the Inc. list in 2021. And we have Brent Gibson. Brent and I look at how he thought about the beginning and really where that came from. And really, to be honest with you, it came from the same place that a lot of our ideas come from. It was the kind of agreement that he wanted to have when he was a young go-getter at about 28 years old. But the company he worked with didn't see it the same way. So he created a business model that would serve him in his younger days. And he's been able to grow his company incredibly fast because of that. You'll enjoy tuning in to exactly how he structures that, but also why he structured that way, what it does and the impact it makes across the organization. We get a little bit into the culture of it, but he said we don't have to talk about culture because we live it. This is who we are. And I really love the beautiful leadership elements inside of today's episode with Brent. Now, if you're thinking about your own journey as leaders, and I'd love to get you to pause for a second. Are you truly leading as powerfully as you know you can? If you answer that question and you're not quite sure, or you don't have an answer, then I'd love to invite you to a conversation. That conversation is not to sell you anything. That conversation is truly to give you a chance to talk about what you really want to create. And I can help you see what's getting in the way. A lot of people just get caught up in the day-to-day work. They don't see what really is getting in the way. And I can actually help you zero in on it. I've been doing this for a decade, and I'd love to help you figure out what it is getting in your way of growth and being a more powerful leader and creating the kind of company that you've dreamed about. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com, schedule your call. We'll chat, we'll get to know each other, and I'll serve you as powerfully as I can. I won't sell you anything, I promise. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com, schedule your call today. Now, here's the interview with Brent. Hey, Brent, how are you?
Good, Gene. I'm doing great today. Looking forward to our discussion.
Well, Brent, we're going to have an incredible discussion about ownership and what that really means for your company and the impact it has. Before we get started, tell us a little bit about Construction Simplified.
Yeah, so Construction Simplified is a multi-phase construction executive team, as I refer to it. We do three main services. The first service, which is about a third of our business, is what we call owner's representation. That's essentially representing clients from inception through completion and operations, but bringing a very simplified and understood approach to construction. The middle third, as we often refer to it, is what we call our typical standard construction management, where we're actually holding contracts of some contractors and building buildings. And then our final third is what we call development partner. Development partner is where we are earning equity for fee or for actual legal equity in developments for either ourselves and or our client. So it really blends the owner's mindset with the builder skill set and brings it into one as a development partner.
I haven't heard of this actual business model. Is this something you created, or did you learn this from somewhere else, or just saw a gap that needed to be filled?
Kind of a little of all three. So as a rising vice president of operations at a previous company, I wanted to own stuff. I'm really good at building. I'm very creative. Knowing that working for the man, as we may refer to it, doesn't get me where I wanted to be, I figured there had to be a better way to work on owning real estate every day in my normal course of business. But I also knew you had to be a very good builder. Guys that develop real estate usually have a good builder, and that's also giving away a profit margin. So we looked at it blending those two, and then also the owner's rep is you have to understand what it's like to be an owner. You have to feel what it's like being an owner, whether that's writing the checks, delivering the bad news, dealing with the bad news. So we kind of a blended services profile, and then that you'll find out got blended with a business profile to say, does it all make sense and does it work for a business?
You said a sentence in there that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have uttered before, and I want to put a highlight on it. There had to be a better way. I've said this sentence probably millions of times. You've said it in the birth of this company. I really appreciate you coming here to talk about this and really looking at the leadership style at which you have brought to the table here. You've got a small team, but you guys have grown relatively fast, making the Inc. list at number 1392 last year. Pretty impressive.
Thanks for that. It's been an interesting road, especially with Inc. magazine. What started my entrepreneurial journey over 8 years ago, I was an inaugural member of an Inc. Business Owners Council. We had councils in, I believe it was Miami, New York, LA, Grand Rapids, Michigan, through some personal connections. My very first night, we were at a Thursday night pre-event, I guess you would say, with Bill Rasmussen, the founder of ESPN. And that was really my deep dive instantaneously into entrepreneurship. 12 individual business owners in West Michigan spent 3 hours with Bill. A fun fact, he started, and don't quote me on this, ESPN when I think he was 56 years old. So it kind of gave me this idea that anything's possible. At that point, I was probably in early 30s, entrepreneur, if you will. And I said, I'm going to do this. And that's what started the journey.
Love the story here. Brent, when our team did some research on the company and about what you guys do, what we discovered was you guys really believe in actually giving people equity. And I know this probably isn't something that every company can do, but when did you start giving people equity in your company?
So from day one, we'll call it false equity from day one, because there certainly is a grace period of getting to know one another, making sure the business model fits for each of us. But the push is no sooner than a year, but very quickly when everyone is ready to give legal equity. What's unique about that is the current partnership group that's on board gives away a portion of their equity for that new partner joining the team. So not only is it Brent Gibson giving away equity, I gave away the first 25% to the first partner, it's everybody thereafter giving away their share to bring a new team member on. And what better way to build a great team from day one?
That is pretty interesting. It's not just that, because equity is limited. We can't just, make more of it as our government does and with dollars and whatnot. You have 100% that has to be always in balance. You started, so you own the company. Your first partner is 25%. And then now you have 9 people. So everyone is considered a partner at this level?
That's correct. And give you a little bit of the mathematical background for those guys who like spreadsheets and math. When I was the only owner, there was essentially 2 owners. There was Construction Simplified Holdings, which was 50%. And then there was Brent Gibson, partner number 1, who owned 50%. When I brought on the first partner, I gave away half of my personal equity, 50% to 25%. The big plan for Construction Simplified is 10 offices across the country, 10 partners, that's 100 individuals, and I would share equity with all those 99 partners. That's 49.5%. I retain 0.5% plus Construction Simplified Holdings, 50%. So we have majority. And the plan at that point is I checked my box. I built what I wanted to build. We actually turn it over to the 99 partners. They double up on equity. I make my exit and on to my next thing. So a lot of math that went into it, but it's a conversation that's had almost daily in the office. It's a spoken plan. It's a vision, and everybody is on board with it.
I know that was pretty simplified for you. And I want to ask you to repeat it again, just a little bit so that we can get it in a simplified way and understand it.
Construction Simplified Holdings owns 50%. Brent Gibson personally owns, I'm going to talk at full capacity, 99 partners plus Brent owns 0.5%, and 99 partners own 49% of, 49%. So it's 49.5% owned by partners, and Brent owns a half plus 50.
Okay. Now that
it does work out.
That makes it sense. It makes sense to me now.
The internal mission is for Construction Simplified, for me to create a company that I ultimately wanted 7 years ago. And how can I own something with a team that I want to work with and have true ownership and effect in growing the business? And that was kind of my mathematical way of doing so.
Now, I've talked a lot about, creating a place where people feel like owners, and you don't have to give away equity. I mean, it does help for sure, because, a financial document that says I own this piece, and you show up to meetings a very different way, you solve problems a different way. Why did you feel like equity and ownership was such an important piece to the scale of the business?
Well, Gene, as you would get to know me, I'm a hard worker, and I believe that everyone has the utmost responsibility and responsibility to their team members. It's hard for me to sometimes, I'll say, play HR. I would rather trade my requirements, my expectations of them for something to look at them and say, you own part of this company. And that's said a lot, or that's communicated a lot. It works. They feel completely entitled to the company, as well as I know that they own it. And it's not phantom stock. It's not golden handcuffs, whatever these poorly cultural terms that float around there sometimes. These guys own it.
Now, this whole episode, we've been talking about give people ownership, but I want to put something, out on the table. You can actually create a sense of ownership without people having formal equity, but you do have to want to lead more powerfully. There's some core elements that I've discussed discovered inside of all my research and the conversation I've had here, and you've got to get a few things right. And if you have some of them missing, it's going to take away from that feeling of ownership. And when I mention what these are, I'm just going to go through them very quickly. But if you want to find more information about it, there's plenty of episodes about ownership inside this podcast. All you have to do is reach out to me. I'll point you into the right direction. And those elements look like this. One is mission. You want to make sure people understand the mission and they're really bought into it. The other one is inclusion. They have to be included in the ideas around how we're going to move forward and how we're going to overcome things and the decision we're making. You want to make sure there's a transparent component to what you're doing and creating. It's not just financials, it's about the conversations you have. Empowerment has to be there. If you want to create a place where people feel like owners, you have to empower them really well. There has to be growth. There has to be a chance for people to improve on their experiences and talents and skills inside their organization. And finally, the last point of this is the mindset. They have to have a mindset that they really do want a sense of ownership, and they're not just showing up to get a paycheck. All of those things in place, and I can show you what they are if we had a chance to talk, but I just wanted you to know that you don't have to actually give up equity. You can actually create a sense of ownership just in the way you lead and create a culture around that. Back to today's episode with Brent. I'm kind of curious. A lot of times us entrepreneurs have these ideas for a concept, and this is a little bit different for me. I've never heard it explained the way you've done it before. Did anyone tell you that you're kind of crazy or you're making this complicated? Maybe it was the legal team or maybe the accounting team. I'm not sure. The legal team for sure said that this is not wise, right?
They were the first ones that said exactly what I said. Just this is what I want. We can draw it. So and they did. And now 7 years later, I would get a very similar reaction. People see it working. We've done nearly 20 million this year in revenue. It works. We have our big distribution event tomorrow night to all the partners, and it's mathematical. There's no personal. Brent gets to assume, well, this guy did a little bit harder work than the other. It's straight line. It's exactly what I wanted where I had a problem before.
I love the concept of it. I'm a math person, but I also love that when you're bringing people in that trust, and I heard something in there that I think is really powerful, is every time a new person's hired, everyone is giving up a little bit of their stake to make sure that relationship is solid and we're going to move forward. They're going to make it work forward. Is there any lessons learned inside of that, just hiring new people and giving up that equity?
Make sure you vet them and hire the right people. Certainly, we're getting better at that. Everyone operates differently. We know that. A great team is made up of different personalities and different strengths and weaknesses. We all know that. This is really just reinforcing the team. There's a lot of fear that some may have if they're giving up equity, and we did the same amount of revenue next year as we did this year. Ultimately, they would be losing income. My belief is if we bring somebody on and people face fear in the head on, we're going to do more revenue. It's a very simple person with a bigger, better, stronger team. The year-over-year increase of income potential continues going vertical, and only with that and hard work does it work.
Well, I want to dive into a little bit of the other aspects of leadership inside this company, because it's not just an equity, situation and whatnot. How would you describe your leadership style, Brent?
Direct, continuous. We just finished a book by Patrick Lencioni, the five. I'm gonna give him a shout out. It was leadership and team. I'm having a brain slip here, but there was a statement in there, and I highlighted it so I can discuss it in book club, that only the brave, and I'll bring this short. Only the brave will continually address people and say, let's do this, let's make it better, let's chase continuous improvement, let's work as a team. Only brave managers will do that. And I highlighted it for my team because I often feel that when delivered too many times, even if it's delivered perfectly, people can start to say, man, it's never enough. And I brought that up openly to say, hey, I know I deliver a lot of continuous improvement thoughts, but it is a lot, but it makes us better. And I wanted to have that open, direct communication, and it seems to work. And again, it's who I am. Luckily, I started a company as myself, so that culture is created.
Now, Brent just talked about only the brave seeking continuous improvement. Now, I really do believe that your business will continue to grow, or it won't grow, based on your ability to accept continuous improvement. And this doesn't mean just you. This means the entire organization. It has to be a central part of what we're doing. We have to have values that really help us go beyond where we are today. That's how we continue growing. We don't get stale. Now, I bring this up because I want you to really think about this. Are you leading as powerfully as you need to create that continuous improvement across the organization? Or do you put your head down and just get to work? Do you focus on what's right in front of you and ask everyone to do the same. I know what it's like when so many things are going on, but if you're not always improving on the systems and the processes that you have, it makes it that much harder to create the predictable growth that you want to as a leader. Back to Brent. When you look at, your evolution as a leader, you were an entrepreneur, just for 7 years. I feel like I've been an entrepreneur for all my life. Did you have to unlearn some things about business and how to create this kind of place that you live in now?
Yeah, I think every day is something new, right? I look back, even though I might have only started a business under this current flag 7 years ago, I look at when I was 10 years old, I did very entrepreneurial things. I think very entrepreneurish. Why did I have a challenge? Why did I rise up at my old firm, but also in the same respect, hit the glass ceiling multiple times? It was those entrepreneurial tendencies. What did I have to change going into this? Really the understanding that people, you have to find the good in people and then polish that good. And you got to ask them to work on their parts that could be improved, but also respect the part that's excellent about them. And I think for me, I'll say mentally, I need to slow down and really work at becoming a better leader and appreciating, but pushing. And that sometimes is very, very delicate.
I would assume all the people that you're hiring, you would also want them to think entrepreneurial as well. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. We often debate, can you teach hustle or in hunger, or is it learned? And we try to find ways to do that. But ultimately, our summary is always, you have that or you don't have it. And can you exploit it is one thing. But if you're not born with that gene, with that desire, sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah, I think I would lean toward the side of things like that are innate. Some people are just naturally hungrier than others. And just so we're clear with the audience, we don't mean actually hungry, because I have a 14-year-old, he's always hungry. But I will say that it's really hard to motivate someone to drive harder as a leader. And I really don't know if it's even possible to the level at which we really want them to. So you're looking for that person that's already got the hustle and hungry. And how are you determining that in your hiring and vetting process?
So we have a lot of examples. We're just now, I'll say, getting ready to, this is a good timing. We're really looking to bring on more partners and hopefully expand throughout the nation here in 22, opening an office in Florida. That's going to push us and really vet how good are we at hiring the right people, especially when we might not have a day-to-day control or influence over that culture or who they are or that market. So the test is ahead of us. We have a couple of different matrices and rubrics that we have created over the years that really define. We look first for an A+ project manager. And what does that mean? We then have what we call a partner performance matrix that really takes that A+ project manager and exposes them to the business side. So how do we really vet those ideas and validate it, get examples from those individuals?
What have we not touched on here, Brent, that you feel like is important for us to understand how you guys work and operate and create the growth that you have?
I started this company with hustle, with a plan, very good mathematical plan, a belief in people. I believe that most people are very talented, but fear stops them. I was one of those individuals. If you looked at Brent back in high school, he's not Brent today. I moved to where we live and the business has started knowing nobody. So I look at it and tell people, get out there and meet people, have this conversation with Gene, see where this takes us. Isaac Newton had it right. Put energy towards something and something will happen. So we're constantly testing that theory to see what happens next. The beauty is we always have a decision at that next moment. So I'm a believer in good things will always come if you work towards it, and trying to push that in the business sense. For me, the only way to make that sink in is to give people ownership, because it's a never ending, try this next, let's do that. And all my prior experience said everyone plateaus and stops somewhere along that line. And that's okay. It's just not the company I want to build.
I want to wrap us up here with this. I kept thinking when you talked about give people ownership, and I do believe in this, and I really appreciate you giving us the insight in your business. Do you guys have to talk about culture? Do you have to talk about the things that a lot of companies struggle with because everyone is an owner, or do those things just kind of work naturally in your favor?
I would say we don't talk about it as much because we naturally feel it every day. A lot of companies obviously put it on the walls, mandate stuff. We live it. And I think that's when you reach your Zen, right? You're living your culture. Sometimes it's not the culture that Brent envisioned on day one. Absolutely. I can't also control that culture. I can influence that culture. So, but we just had our Christmas party Friday night. And we looked around the room and we said, we're a good looking company, both in physical form, but also just our skills and our personalities and who we are. We love who we are together. And I think that's a testament to the team, always recruiting the best, wanting to work together. It's a really good feeling.
Well, it's a beautiful story. So I'm glad that you had a chance to share it here on the podcast.
Thank you, Gene. Appreciate that.
Brent has just given us his perspective on, give people ownership inside of a company and what happens. We went through the mathematical formula so you can look at it. It's a little bit different than what most people do. But what I'm really hearing here is someone who cares about a company and scaling the right way, not afraid to give people equity and inviting them into something really special. And I think that's really a strong part of leadership that hopefully you can learn from today. If you have any questions about where you're going next as a leader, here's my offer to you. I have a chance to sit down with a few people each week where I can sit down and look at what's really going on in the business, what's going on in leadership, what's missing, and help you get some insight around this, some wisdom, so that you can move forward with clarity, because I know how important that is. Absolutely free. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. I offer this to you because if you're listening this deep into the interview, you probably want to be a better leader. And I help people become more powerful leaders, inspire a sense of ownership within their company. And I can do that for you too. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, we encourage. We'll see you next time.